you, Guyana, and welcome to Facing the Nation. This is our final program for the month of October. That means we're quickly approaching Christmas. So I trust that those of you who are already in the Christmas, the holiday season state of mind, that you stay in that mode. And as you do so, you still get the things that you want to get done, the things that you want to get achieved. I hope that you do get them achieved, and I trust that you would have thus far had a productive month. Thanks for joining us. Of course, on today's program, I thought it fit to focus a little on the Guyana Responsible Parenthood Association. We hear about so many non-governmental organizations in society, and unfortunately, we don't necessarily focus on or pay attention to them until there is an anniversary or until there's a major issue that these non-governmental organizations are addressing. So today I decided to have the director of the Guyana Responsible Parenthood Association, that's a GRPA, and of course she is Reverend Patricia Sheetaran Bisnot. Welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Malika, and thank you for inviting me and having GRPA come to Face the Nation with you.
Okay, great. It's wonderful to have you. Viewers, also coming up a little later on in the program, I will have an address by the First Lady of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Her Excellency Mrs. Sandra Granger. She played a part in actually the recent fundraiser by the GRPA. They had a recent fundraising dinner and she gave the address. And it struck me because she spoke about the fact, the center of the address was on the fact that rape. She focused on the issue of rape and the fact that persons responsible for statutory rape should be penalized, of course, to the full extent of the law. So you'll be hearing all about that address. Of course, Reverend Bisnot will also tell you what the GRPA is doing in terms of addressing rape and, of course, statutory rape. First of all, Reverend Bisnot, let's talk a little bit about the work of the GRPA and what they've done over the years and things that will be done so that Guyanese can just get a sense of what you're doing.
Well, the GRPA is one of the oldest NGOs in Guyana. It was established in 1973 as a family planning organization at a time when this was really not so much in the thinking of people as something that would be highly acceptable. But it was really very, very important as women were also establishing their place in the public sphere. Because of course we know even today, in current day, it is seen that a woman's role is largely in the private sphere, in the home.
Yes.
And so in those days, it was very important for family planning to be quite a critical element of this forward move of women for their rights to participate fully in the society. And GRPA is today a leading organization, health provider in sexual and reproductive medical services, and we also have quite a large program for counseling, psychosocial support, education and information. In addition, we have a youth advocacy movement.
Oh, okay, certainly a mouthful, and I'll definitely get to the youth. But let's talk about the women first. I'm happy that you started off by talking about the role in which GRPA played in terms of women and how women were perceived then and to an extent still perceived now. We often hear about these big, sometimes, for want of a better word, we often hear about these schemes, sometimes plans, sometimes projects, whether it be by government or other non-governmental organizations talking about, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to start this program to empower women. What role is the GRPA currently playing in terms of empowering our women? And again, maybe for want of a better phrase, because I don't necessarily like this thing about, it's so vague, empowering women.
I mean, empowering, we support because empowerment is, a sense of power which is for an individual to participate in one's life in terms of advancing and feeling that sense of power. So at GRPA, yes, it's quite an important foundational element of the organization. And following from family planning, which is very important for women and men to be able to plan their lives. And we'll talk a bit about teenage pregnancy and all the social factors that would arise from not really having family planning done as it should be. So it's about providing women with education and information that they can access healthcare, that they can make choices and decisions concerning their lives, and also addressing many of the social issues related to sexual and reproductive health, such as gender-based violence, such as teenage pregnancy. And at GRPA, we have also been working quite a bit in gender and advancing the way that we think about, this whole construction of gender, and going beyond what we currently understand and what is currently seen as a norm in our society.
All right. Do you get, especially from our women, do you get a sense that you're having a positive response? Because again, we're still in a society where some women feel, whether it be they're being mentally or physically abused, and they have other challenges, maybe having difficulties with feeding their children, putting food on the table. Do you get the sense that women are willing, who are in these situations, are willing to come forward, come to your organization to say, well, I have this problem, can you assist? Are you getting that?
Yes, actually, we do have more and more. We have women who, just walk off the streets, meaning that they just come in, especially in the area of gender-based violence, in relationship problems, and we have quite a significant number of cases of women, especially women, bringing in their teenage child, girls and boys, because they can't cope. They don't know what else to do, and to ask for help because of behaviors which are very risky and which are, self-destructing their lives. So we have families who also, and we do have men who walk in and also seek help. Although men are fewer, and most of the times when they come with a lot of skepticism, saying, one regular introduction to a session would be, Guyana is all for women, that men have no rights in this society, and some men feel that way.
But what is your take on that, though? Do you find difficulty in actually helping men instead of helping only the women?
I think we should help both. I think that we cannot be blind to the fact that men are also in need of help. Men are also going through difficult times. And so at GRPA, it wouldn't be an instead of, but we are welcoming and we are encouraging more and more men to come into the organization. One, in relation to sexual and reproductive health, it's so difficult. We have a very small percentage of clientele who are men. Because, in our society, it's a Guyana thing, it's a Caribbean thing where one would not go for testing and screening, for a checkup. One goes to the health facility when one is seriously ill. And so we are encouraging men to come in for health checkup because it's so important to your total well-being, but also to be involved in our programs, to also come and seek counseling, to be involved in the educational work, for us to connect with men and all the stress they're facing in society, what they're going through. There are less facilities for men to express themselves. Not that it was constructed that way, but men don't feel often, it's women organize so easily, women get in a conversation so easily. But for men, it usually is around the bottle. Right.
So it is indeed, in a sense, challenging, more challenging than addressing the women.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your work in schools. We're in an era where there has unfortunately been a breakdown of moral values, ethics. You touched on teenage pregnancy, and I believe this is because our youths, our adolescents are not being groomed properly and not being told, and they're not being guided in a proper manner. So does GRPA have a program or programs in school that you can probably reach out to children even before they become teens?
Before they become teens, we haven't. We would like to,
Okay.
Because we believe that that all children and adolescents, youth, should have very good level of sexuality education, which encompasses so many things about oneself. Understanding oneself, both in terms of not only biologically, but in terms of emotionally, in terms of psychologically, in terms of socially, what's going on. And so, with GRPA, we are working with schools, and we would like to work more and more with schools, but in a more systematic, programmatic way. Currently, we are only able to do sessions, as we will be invited to. And there's such a big need for this. The work that we are doing in schools, we have been doing work on values, sense of values. We've been doing work on sexuality and sex education in terms of understanding one's body. What are the issues of puberty that one needs to know. One needs to also get counseling. We have been doing sessions on violence in school. As we know it in our society, we see it only when it appears in the papers, but
Yes.
there's a lot of this going on, and we have to understand the context in which we live and what is happening in a lot of homes. These children are coming from homes which a lot of times are very troubled places, and where their whole environment they're so immersed in that situation of violence, where relationships are understood to be those of violence become quite normative in their lives, and so this is displayed in the schools. So I think there's a huge need to address this in the schools. And GRPA, we are playing a small part, and we would like to do more. I think organizations are in very good positions. There are other organizations too in very good positions to offer some support to the educational systems.
All right, okay. Viewers, if you're now tuning in, of course, this is Facing the Nation. Today I am chatting. It's my pleasure to be chatting with the director of the Guyana Responsible Parenthood Association, GRPA, Reverend Patricia Sheetaran Bisnot. And of course, we have lots more coming up. I know you're a non-governmental organization, which means you address the issues of all. You don't take sides. But how have you worked along in terms of helping to keep the GRPA afloat? How have you worked along with government? Whether it's been government in the past or the previous government, how have you worked along?
We have worked along with governments quite well. Actually, GRPA, when it was established, it received quite a lot of support, and actually was very much close, did the family planning work to a large extent with the Ministry of Health. And since then, the relationship has been very good. We coordinate well with the government at several levels, from the minister to the different levels, especially with the maternal and child care department unit. We are happy to say that we find the support very, very helpful to us to be able to do the work that we are doing.
That you're doing. All right. I know you recently also met with the current First Lady, who, as I did say earlier, addressed the GRPA's recent fundraising dinner. Are there long-term plans to continue working with that office?
Oh yes, I mean the First Lady was she delivered an excellent address that was really, really well appreciated, because she really has her head in this place of what is really happening in Guyana, and especially her interest in women, and in particular what's happening with young people and young women. We do hope to, and we've had conversations with her, we hope to continue to work with her to support her office. I think that her voice and her interventions are quite critical in Guyana at this time, and we're really happy that she has that depth of knowledge, and that she has that passion in her heart, because you could feel it.
Yes.
We've been reading a lot about her work in different parts of Guyana, and I think she has a lot to offer, and certainly we hope to partner with her.
All right, let's talk a bit on, and this is a sore point for me, and I get irritated sometimes. I even try not to speak about it publicly on my own without some sort of guidance and restraint. And of course, that is domestic abuse, especially violence against women. I may be sounding a tad bit naive here, but I can never understand why women who are constantly beaten, you're either ashamed to say that you're in an abusive relationship, or when you do go to courts, you pull back and you say, okay, I don't want to prosecute anymore. How can the GRPA penetrate that situation and get more women to not only come forward, but when you come forward and you find your own strength, to not go back into those situations?
I think that's yeah, it's quite a critical issue. We know of it. We experience it at GRPA. I mean, oftentimes up to yesterday, there was such a case. Um, you see, the situation of a person in domestic violence, it's quite complex. And so on the outside, we can see the logic of what one should do and how one should move forward. But within a person, it has to be taken, at another level. There are so many factors which are involved. At GRPA, we do counseling. We work in collaboration with other organizations, Red Thread, for instance, and Help and Shelter, because they are more specialized in this area. So we do counseling, but like Red Thread, they would help quite a bit with the legal aspect and the police aspect of it. Because for women to be able to move forward, there needs to be a good support system. One needs to know that when one reports a case, we have to have the situation with the police and the legal system, the law really well. We were still lacking so much. And so a woman needs to have some confidence, that she will receive that support, that she has a place to go. The economic situation is another one. But I think in the first place, she needs a lot of help, not only emotionally, psychologically, but also help that the law bearers in the society need to step up and to provide. And still, we hear of a lot of cases where the responses are not good. I know the police, I mean, there are police stations which do a lot better, and there are police that give, a helpful response to this. But a lot more work needs to be done in this area.
I'm happy that you did talk about the fact that you work along with Red Thread. So this is not just a non-governmental organization working by itself. You actually
yes.
work with not all, not necessarily all, but you actually work with the other non-governmental organizations.
Yes, quite closely, yeah.
All right. Any plans to address or to touch on the issue of suicide? That's another big thing.
Oh, yes, we get calls a lot because people would have our number. Once I was just going to leave the office and my phone rang, and a woman, she was so desperate for help because she felt her son was committing suicide in his room. It's an issue that we cannot ignore. It's an issue that we all need to get involved in. And really, at GRPA, whilst we are not so equipped to deal with suicide cases, we do offer help, and what we can do is to offer referral. We are not really equipped to deal with mental health issues, but we don't turn people away. We listen, and what we can offer is a referral.
Okay, all right, understood. Earlier you did talk about the fact that men can also come in. You're also reaching out to men. Do you have a situation whereby you have men inside the GRPA? Of course, every organization have both sexes, but do you have men inside the GRPA who are working in the forefront and who seem to have the ability to handle these cases?
Not yet. We do have men, yes, who are coming up in the forefront. We have men who have been taking leadership in terms of mobilizing, and we last year we had monthly sessions which men organized, and our colleagues were involved because I couldn't be there. I'm not part of this setup, so I'm not invited in that space, which is fine. It should be their space. But we need to strengthen, I'll tell you the truth, we need to strengthen this area a lot more. What we have been working with the Men's Affairs Bureau, and we've been working with faith-based organizations also. And the faith-based organizations play quite a critical role in dealing with all these issues that we talked about earlier. And especially for men's involvement. We look at men. At GRPA, we had a larger program for gender-based violence, and looking at men more as partners and an important part of the solution, not to look at men only as perpetrators and a problem. It's very
Feel
important
labeled.
because this men who come into GRPA, this is how they feel, that they're being blamed and that, they don't have a place. So we have turned this around to a more positive approach with men because, as I said, we need to listen also to understand what they're facing and to help them. Men who are perpetrators of violence, they're part of, they're part of a history. In Guyana, we have a long history of violence as a way of relating to people, from the days of Columbus and our indigenous people to slavery to indentureship. And even today, we still hold on to violence as a solution, such as corporal punishment, for instance, that we cannot really have order without violence, without a whip. And so we need to understand the deep psychological, aspects of what we're facing. And so open up the space for men. And I really would like to call out on more men. There are a lot of men who can play critical roles, in leadership and taking us forward in terms of working with men to play that important role. And hopefully, maybe soon in Guyana, we can have that men's network.
Okay, yes, hopefully soon indeed. You talked about the men, you talked about the women, and of course, to some extent, the children and teen pregnancy and so on. Is there a plan? Is this even doable now? Because, I know you can't infringe on the privacy of others, but is there a plan whereby you can address the family unit, the family as a unit, instead of a separation? Can that be done at all?
Oh yeah, we also, I should mention, and in schools we do quite a lot of parenting programs also. And addressing, we have families who come. In Guyana, we still tend to think in quite colonial terms about family, and we have, so although we know in reality families, the structures of family vary.
Yes, and it's changed.
So we do deal with families, but oftentimes, yes, there's a lot of, there are a lot of broken homes. There are a lot of situations where the families wouldn't come together to talk about these issues. But there are some situations where especially the men would come in. Oftentimes it's a woman who would come in and the woman who would bring the children. Sometimes there are men who come in with the children. There's a man who would come in. We had a young male with his baby in a situation coming to seek help because he wants to raise his child. He wants to be involved in raising his child, and he wants to play that critical role, and he feels threatened. So we would have the men, and then it's easier to call a woman.
Yes.
When I say easier, the response is faster than when a woman comes in, and then to call the man. The response is not always so good. But sometimes they do come, because, this is, I think, takes some, kind of being brave or taking that step forward, because I think a lot of time the barriers are that they won't be understood, or that it's not a place for them.
Okay. All right. I know I have to let you go soon. Let you get back to your busy schedule very soon. Before I do that, two other very important things. Do you have, when I say you, I mean the GRPA. Does the GRPA have an opinion or position or a stand on trafficking in persons? And is there anything that you can probably put in place to help not only government, but all other organizations interested in getting rid of that particular scourge?
Oh yes, certainly it's a problem in Guyana that we are facing, and we need to be more open about it, and there needs to be a lot more education and awareness. On CARICOM Day, that is the 6th of July, I think, my church, actually the youth in my church in Demerara County, they had a rally with the subject of human trafficking. Bodies are not commodities. It was amazing because we did some educational sessions. They were very, very interested. And then from that gathering, we heard three stories, of which were not seen as trafficking, but the stories were of trafficking, where people came out to say what happened to, like parents and relatives. So it is happening in our midst. and we need a lot more awareness. At GRPA, yes, it's an issue that we deal with of persons who would come in, especially in our clinic, medical attention, where we have a range of medical services. We have a laboratory also. And so when one comes to the clinic, we have a rights-based approach. A client's interests would be our main interest. And there are quite a few instances where they would then be referred for further support, and so
Okay.
they go for counseling and also psychosocial support. So yes, in cases of trafficking, in liaising with the police, this is very important. We get quite a few cases. People are still kind of whispering sometimes, and they're not sure. Sometimes we get a case from someone who has been dealing with a situation and doesn't know quite what to do. And so I think a lot more information on what people should do, especially, organizations, community organizations, and faith-based organizations. Because I'm a pastor also, I will have other persons, religious leaders who would call, and sometimes they know of a case or they were called in to address a case, and they don't quite know how to deal with it. So GRPA, a lot of times it's a medical situation in the first place, but sometimes persons would also call us up. And whilst in terms of we do not deal directly with rescuing or any, direct action with those cases.
Facilitate, in a sense.
Yes, yes. So when it comes to children, all matters concerning children, we have a very good relationship with the Child Protection Agency and the Ministry of Social Protection. So we would liaise with our colleagues in those institutions to offer further help.
Are you at a state, or is that not necessary at this point? Are you at a state where you have hotline numbers that can be?
No, but we need to have hotline numbers, and so we want to introduce this at the GRPA. A long time ago, GRPA did have hotline numbers, and we want to reintroduce this facility.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's so important that people have somewhere that they can call, and get help, even when they cannot find themselves physically to go to that location.
Okay. You have indeed said a lot. How does the GRPA stay afloat with all of these tasks that you have to achieve?
Well, the organization really has a heavy demand because this is situation in the society need a lot of attention. So we are challenged. We need a lot more capacity, staff, and we hope that really we can get more support to do the work. I mean, support in terms of financial resources and other such resources, but also in terms of partnership. I think in Guyana, we need to move towards more kind of concerted efforts, in addressing even gender-based violence, for instance. We need to move together in a common path, several aspects of this. So at GRPA, we are expanding in terms of the work that we do, and we need to expand, enhance our capacity to do this.
Okay. Finally, before I let you go, in talking about expanding and enhancing the work that you do, are there any major projects coming up that the public can get involved in, and apart from their involvement, that you would like to make public at this time?
Yes, we have a project actually, it's ongoing at the moment, and it focuses on youth, young people. It's under a broad heading of choices, that is that they may be empowered to make wise choices. And so it has components of education and medical services. We are working to engage young people to be friendly, to come in, to have to develop a kind of a relationship with the health institutions, and also to work with health workers to make those places friendly for adolescents and young people. So it's medical services and education and advocacy, on some of the issues that youth are facing, that indeed we will be able to address those terrible high numbers, such as teenage pregnancy, for instance, but more so that our youth will have that opportunity to live a full and rich life and be able to steer the course in Guyana to a much better place.
Okay, all right. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Of course, viewers have been chatting with Reverend Patricia Shitaran Besnot, and she is the director of the Guyana Responsible Parenthood Association, GRPA. GRPA, ma'am. It was certainly a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on Facing the Nation.
Thank you very much also. Thanks for this opportunity.
All right, you are very welcome. And viewers, we will take a break. And of course, in that break, as promised, I will now show you the clip of the First Lady of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Her Excellency Sandra Granger, addressing a recent fundraising dinner held by the GRPA. Take a look at that, and I'll be right back with you with more of Facing the Nation.
Master and Mistress of Ceremonies, President, Chairman, and members of the Board of the Guyana Responsible Parenthood Association, Executive Director and staff of the GRPA, representatives of the International Planned Parenthood Federation, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I wish first of all to thank the Chairman and members of the Board of the GRPA for inviting me to share with you some of my thoughts this evening, when this association celebrates another milestone in its history of service to the people of Guyana. In the 21st century, responsible parenthood and family planning continue to be important issues impacting our social and economic development. I know I am mainly preaching to the converted here, but one cannot stress enough the benefits derived from family planning and responsible parenthood, which can be perceived in a plethora of ways. These include greater self-confidence and satisfaction, particularly among women, who will be less worried about unanticipated pregnancy. Increased educational and employment opportunities, especially for women and girls. Greater financial security, higher productivity and income, promotion of joint decision-making in the household, and less discrimination against female children. More decision-making power, especially for our women. Children benefiting from more time spent with their parent or parents. Improved status for women, with increased opportunity for them to join social and civic organizations, increased household income and higher health, nutrition, and education expenditure for each child, fewer orphan children, rapid economic growth during the so-called demographic window, and higher savings and investment for governments through improved productivity, reduced public expenditure in education, health, and other social services. The data have shown that a first birth at a young age, that is, under the age of 20, can limit a girl's or a woman's prospects for education, training, and employment, and in the long term, her earning power, financial security, and by extension, her independence. This is of particular interest to me, given my own focus on reducing adolescent pregnancy. In Guyana today, we have girls as young as 14 years old giving birth, and several aged 15 and 16, some of whom have been victims of trafficking in person. This is where I believe the might and majesty of the law must come into play. Sexual intercourse with a child under 16 is statutory rape, and all loopholes must be closed. I do not want to hear the excuse permissible in one of our CARICOM member states that the perpetrator is not guilty if he did not know that the girl child was underage. Yes, we do have adolescent schoolboys fathering children. In many cases, the girl child has been coerced into having sexual intercourse with an older man, whether she has been trafficked or prostituted or forced by family pressure or economic circumstance to become a sex worker. In preparing this paper, my attention was drawn to a study conducted during 2012 by Elizabeth Rose, I hope I'm pronouncing this name correctly, Ruth Durkeni, Vivian Mitchell, Anita Ramlal, and Dagny Rajasingham on, quote, knowledge, attitudes, and practices of reproductive health of teenagers attending the GPHC obstetric unit. Notwithstanding the limited geographic scope of the research, I found the results extremely important to me. The researchers found that, quote, the average of the first sexual intercourse was 15 years, 12 months, and the youngest person was 10 years old. The average difference in age between the girl and the child's father was 6 years, with the largest age gap being 32. 64% of the girls said they regretted the first time they had sex. 30% claimed they had been coerced in their first sexual encounter. 22% disclosed that they had been raped at some point in the past, and at least 5 had been assaulted by a family member, with the father of one girl being the perpetrator. Among the key findings of this study were that pregnant teenagers attending the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation lack information about sexual and reproductive health, including contraception. They are thereby at greater risk of unintended repeat pregnancies and sexually transmitted infections. There's a lack of access to quality antenatal classes tailored to the needs of pregnant adolescents attending the GPHC obstetric unit, glasses again, which, if provided, would significantly improve health outcomes for mother and baby. And there was an unacceptably high incidence of rape and or sexual coercion among these girls. It was noted that gender-based inequalities undermine the girls' fundamental sexual and reproductive rights. The researchers recommended improved education on sexual and reproductive health in schools' curricula, since it has been recognized that education in SRH is most effective when it is done before teens become sexually active. Increased access to youth-friendly health services and improved access to effective and reliable methods of contraception. In particular, the researchers recommended that the GPHC institute youth-friendly antenatal services, as well as the implementation of a family planning clinic and postpartum, post-abortal protocol. I have spent a little time on this because in the Guyana situation, when we examine birth rates, and that is actual deliveries to adolescent girls between the ages of 15 and 19, between 2005 and 2011, these amount to between 20 and 24% of total live births. Data on total live births for 2012, 2013, and 2014 were not available to me, so I cannot determine the percentage for these past 3 years. However, given the number of births recorded to adolescent mothers reported during those years, there is every reason to believe that the percentage has remained static. It should therefore be a matter of concern that the Caribbean ranks second to sub-Saharan Africa in the number of adolescent pregnancies. Guyana, with Belize and Jamaica, records the highest number of adolescent pregnancies in the Caribbean community. And it appears that Guyana's rate of adolescent pregnancies is replicated throughout the Caribbean, where it is estimated that 20% of women have at least one child by the age of 19, and of these, a considerable number give birth before the age of 15. We have only to read our local newspapers to notice the number of very young girls who are giving birth in our country. The available data have shown that girls who become pregnant at 15 or younger are more likely to experience premature delivery, low infant birth rate, perinatal mortality, and health problems with their newborns. In addition, pregnant adolescents are more likely than adults to have unsafe abortions, which are likely to result in permanent health problems and maternal death. Further, their education is most likely to be interrupted, hence undermining their capacity to achieve their full potential. As I said before, the GRPA has done and continues to perform a valuable service to the people of Guyana. It fulfills its mandate from the International Conference on Population and Development by supporting the government's efforts to provide universal access to sexual and reproductive health, including family planning, and works in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and other national and international organizations in the execution of that mandate. I am happy to note that about 1/3 of its medical, counseling, and education services are provided to young people. And I was very happy to see the YAM component here tonight and to note the interest and the active involvement of the young people in promoting responsible parenthood and sexual and reproductive health. At this time, or up to this time, the organization's activities have been mainly limited to Georgetown and surrounding areas with a few outreach activities. I'm happy to learn that the GRPA is now moving to expand its much needed services to various communities around the country, with training and services provided by its medical clinic, including safe, comprehensive care for women seeking medical termination of pregnancies. The GRPA, that is, collaborates with the Ministry of Health, the Guyana Prison Service, the Rights of the Child Commission, the United Nations Population Fund, the International Planned Parenthood Federation, the Society Against Sexual Orientation Discrimination, ChildLink, Women Across Differences, and Red Thread, as well as corporate entities, to promote information and access to services. In its 2014 report, the GRPA indicated that it was moving towards integrating its efforts to, quote, directly target key populations and marginalized groups, including sex workers, LGBT persons, and persons with special needs or disabled persons, unquote. I believe this is most laudable, given that every single person has the right to information and services relating to his or her sexual and reproductive health. Apart from this, the family planning aspect is also important, not only because of the social and economic benefits to those persons who practice family planning, who can then plan for the future, including focusing on areas such as savings, education, the purchase of a home, recreational activities, and health. The GRPA can also play a leading role in providing information and services relating to cancers, particularly those that affect the reproductive organs. As the association continues its task, I urge that it focus on the prevention and reduction of adolescent pregnancy, providing friendly guidance and counseling on comprehensive sexual and reproductive health for young people, both in and out of school, and that these services are provided in as many of our administrative regions as possible. Given the impact of the electronic media, especially among our young people, the medium and the message must be so fashioned and disseminated that it reaches and creates a response in the widest section of our young people. The importance of adolescent-friendly sexual and reproductive health services cannot be overemphasized. We ought not to be motivated by fear that such knowledge would lead to sexual activity and wild depravity among our youth. Rather, we should be conscious that by informing our young people, we are protecting and keeping them safe and allowing them the ability to achieve their own potential. I would like to share with you in this context 2 stories relating to access to sexual and reproductive health information. When I was in Linden a few months ago, I met a 14-year-old girl who told me that she had gone to the Linden Hospital seeking information, and she had been most appalled and embarrassed by the response of the nurse there, who very loudly, in the presence of the other people in the clinic, asked her what she wanted that information for. She was too young and she should get out. That was one incident. And the second relates to the choices women can make through education. Among the Maya population in Belize, the marriage age is 15, and the age of consent has traditionally been set at that age, when the girls usually got married. But it has been discovered that Maya women agree that they're not really ready for marriage or motherhood at that age. And the Maya women who pursued education held the view that childbearing should and could wait until they completed their education, and they're talking about their tertiary education. The task of preventing sexually transmitted infections, preventing and reducing pregnancy among adolescents, educating people on sexual and reproductive health and cancers of the reproductive organs is really an enormous task. And I commend the GRPA and its collaborators for embarking and continuing to work in this direction. And I believe this task also calls for closer linkages and collaboration between the public and private sectors and the NGOs. In closing, with these having said what I have thought about responsible parenthood and family planning, etc., I wish to reiterate my praise to the work of the GRPA and that it continues to do, and I look forward to the association's expansion to the far reaches of Guyana, where they will partner with the government and other organizations and bodies in the provision of quality sexual and reproductive health services. Thank you.
Of course, that was Her Excellency, the First Lady of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Madam Sandra Granger, addressing one of the fundraising dinners at the Guyana Responsible Parenthood Association a few days ago. She addressed a number of issues affecting our young people, mainly our young women. She talked about rape, the fact that statutory rape, it's rape. Regardless of whether the perpetrator knew the age of the young woman or not, it is rape. And she also addressed the issue of teenage pregnancy. These are things that the First Lady is very, very passionate about, and she has proven time and time again that she's ready and she is willing to work along to, if not completely eradicate these scourges, but to at least stem them to some extent in our society. I would also like to encourage parents and guardians to join her. It's not only about what government and what non-governmental organizations can do and are doing. And on that note, let me once again say thank you very much to Reverend Bisnod, the director of the GRPA. She was here chatting with me earlier. So if you're now joining us, if you're now tuning into the program, you missed some wonderful sentiments and statements coming from the director of the GRPA. Of course, the GRPA doesn't only work by itself, but it works along with many other non-governmental organizations to address these very, very important issues that can be very detrimental to society if they are not eradicated or at least stemmed for now. Coming back to the issue that the First Lady, Madam First Lady, addressed, one of the issues she addressed was teenage pregnancy. I'd just like to encourage parents and guardians to just be a little more aware. Pay a little more attention to your adolescents, especially the young girls. Pay more attention to them and the teenagers. I know life has changed. The family has changed. The roles of the family would have changed over the years because life got so demanding that you had to take on extra jobs. Some parents are not even living in the same country with their child or with their children, so they have to leave them with guardians. But we can do much better. We can be a little more alert when it comes to our girls, our young girls. And I get really upset sometimes when I see, I shouldn't even get upset because these young parents may not know better, but I get upset when I see you dressing your child or your children a certain way, young women especially. The fact is, we're in a society now whereby a 12-year-old, unfortunately, looks as old as a 17-year-old or a 17-year-old, and this is not in the sense of features, but in the sense of body shape, the way they are. So you need to protect them. I believe that a child must be a child until he or she becomes an adult. That means you dress them like a child and you take them places where children will go, and you send them places where children will go, not where adults will go. So I'm pleading with some of you to be a little more alert, especially those parents who have 2 and 3 jobs, who work late nights. You need to find a way, you need to find measures, put measures in place that your teenager will not necessarily be free to go and come as they please when you are not in the homes. That is the only way we can protect these young people. We like to make this grand statement that the teenagers, they're the future leaders, but they can't be the future leaders if we don't protect them. We can't wait until we see that they're going down the wrong roads and then we talk about, I mean, I'm even guilty of this. Most of us are guilty of this, and then we say, our young people in society got serious problems. They're not like us when we were young. I mean, we made our mistakes too, but come on, we need to pay more attention to them and give them more guidance. Of course, it's coming down to wrap-up time for me today, but before I go, there's another issue I want to raise. Remember, the cleanup campaign in Georgetown is still going on, and we really want it to be an ongoing one. So I am pleading with you. I did this with you. I pled with you last week, and I'm pleading again. Please be respectful of all those hardworking people who are toiling in the hot sun from sunup to sundown, who are going into the trenches, they're digging the drains, they're putting their own health, safety, and lives at risk. Have some respect for them. Not when they clean, you come and you deface. The Deputy Mayor, Madam Patricia Chase Green was here last week, and she talked about the fact that there were measures put in place on Cemetery Road to beautify that area. Tires were painted. Now the tires are missing because people just stole the tires, and God in heaven knows did what with them. Come on, we have to be watchful. This country is ours. It belongs to us. And if we don't take care of it, no one else is going to take care of it. We can scream from now until whenever to talk about what governments will do, what governments have done, and what governments are not doing, and they're not moving quickly. But if we don't play our part, we're not going to get anywhere. So when it comes to the cleanup efforts and beautifying the capital, please play your role in doing it. If you don't want to go out in the trench or go out on the parapets and clean, ensure that you at least be vigilant. Protect what is ours. And on that note, I have to say bye-bye for this week from Facing the Nation. Take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for tuning in today. And of course, I encourage you to join me again next week for another informative edition of Facing the Nation. I am Malika Ramsey. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and of course, be good Guyanese citizens, and join me again next time. Goodbye.